how's it going? This is going to be a quick review, I hope it's quick, and comparison of the 2009 book, The Finest Hours, the true story of the U.S. Coast Guard's most daring sea rescue by Michael J. Tagayas and Casey Sherman, and the screen adaptation that came out earlier this year. The Finest Hours tells the true story of two oil tankers, the Fort Mercer and the Pendleton, that split in half off the coast of Cape Cod in Massachusetts during a nor'easter in February 1952. It focuses on the brave efforts of both the tanker survivors and the men in the Coast Guard who went out to find and rescue them. I initially heard about the book from one of the authors doing a radio spot, and I was interested because it's an ocean disaster story. But I didn't actually get around to reading the book until one of my sisters recommended the movie. Then I got the book and read it very quickly, and then watched the movie with my parents a few weeks later. In hindsight, maybe I should have waited longer to see the movie, or just seen the movie first, because this is a case where the movie probably stands better on its own. Even though I didn't retain a lot of what I'd read, I remembered more than I thought, and so it was obvious to me when the movie just went its own way, and if you think I was bothered by that, you're absolutely right. I'll first say a couple things about the book. The action sequences are pretty quick, and to make it a full-length book, the writers added things like individuals' backstories and post-rescue follow-up to beef it up. The narrative mentions a lot of people and tends to bounce back and forth a lot, and that can be confusing. This was a book where I quickly decided it wasn't crucial or even possible for me to remember every single person that was mentioned, so I just focused on the basics. It's not the craziest disaster story I've read, but the incident was unusual, and the complexity and danger of the rescue operation is compelling. I also appreciate that it shines light on the Coast Guard, a branch of the armed forces that I feel sometimes gets forgotten, and tells how many of these men were World War II veterans who continued to serve their country and lay their lives on the line after the war. Now for the movie. Let me first say that it was alright. My parents liked it. My sister really liked it. I guess I just had different expectations. I think I can boil it down to two main objections. First, the storytelling seemed incomplete. The movie only shows what happens on one half of the Pendleton. There are a few lines in the background of a couple scenes that mention the other oil tanker, but if you're not paying attention, you could miss them and forget about it completely. But part of what made this event so remarkable was the fact that two oil tankers split in half in the same night. So, what happened to the other three halves of ship that they didn't show at all? Second, the storytelling was inaccurate. It takes Bernie Webber, who was a focus in the book, and makes him the main character, played by Chris Pine. In real life, Webber was a newlywed and his wife Miriam was sick in bed with the flu during the rescue. But the movie makes their romance a big deal, actually kicking off with their first date. Disaster hits the day after they get engaged when Bernie has to go out, and now fiancée Miriam, played by Holliday Grainger, is faced with a crisis of second thoughts. The screenwriters, who I guess needed a female lead, took Miriam from a gutsy backstory character to a pushy, kind of unlikable main character, and every time the movie returned to this fabricated subplot, it distracted me from the real conflict. And that's another thing. There was all this conflict among the Pendleton crewmen and the highest-ranking officer remaining, played by Casey Affleck, and between the Coast Guard men and their commanding officer, played by Eric Bana. For one thing, I don't remember reading about any of that in the book, but more importantly, none of it gave me a greater connection to any of these characters. It just seemed like they added these things because the real story, what they kept of it, wasn't exciting enough. But hey, if you didn't read the book, you wouldn't know any of this, and you'd probably think the movie was fine. So that's what I thought. Feel free to share what you think, especially if you liked the movie. Maybe you can counterbalance my uncharacteristic negativity with your comments. Thanks for watching. Bye!